Welcome to Terror Takeover, your one-stop shop for all things creepy, disgusting, and horrifying. I'm your host, Crow, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Zoe and Char.
Hi.
Hello.
We have a special day. We have our first guest on today, and it's Thorn. He's an influential artist in our music scene and an aficionado of all things black metal with a passion for horror. Most importantly, he is the fiance to our own co-host, Zoe, and he's my big brother. Thank you so much for joining us.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for having me.
This is so exciting. Tell us a little bit about what you have going on lately, just regarding music or any other artistic endeavors.
We just came out with an album. Aside from that, just kind of moving forward, trying out some new avenues and stuff like that, exploring some new ideas that we haven't really come across yet, picking up new instruments, just trying to stay dynamic.
Right. I think that's one thing that I like so much about what you guys are doing is that you kind of always keep it moving and it's always growing and evolving. I think that keeps it really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely something that I push for quite a bit, try to drag everyone along for it.
And me and Zoe just got to see you guys. Of course, we've already seen you several times now, but just got to see you for the first time at Siberia, and we had so much
We
fun,
did.
right, Zoe?
It was so much fun, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of really just get in more of vlogging or pretty much everyday life. People
Yes.
kind of really like to watch that stuff. So I think it's very interesting.
And you did a really good job on that video too. I watched it a few times. It was so good. I think that you captured like what we did really perfectly. It was like a little bit of the performance stuff, a little bit about the travel stuff, a little bit about just like us having a good time. I think that like vlogging, and we were talking about this on the way there,
Mhm.
vlogging is so much harder than people realize.
No, it's incredibly an expertise.
Well, it's kind of like you never know what exactly to capture, what exactly to leave out. And then you feel so, we were saying how you feel kind of like, not you, but like people in general feel awkward just recording in public. But
Right.
it's also a newer age. So I think that it's kind of at a point where people are expecting to see that a little bit more. But also, who fucking cares? Like, just do whatever you want,
Just
right?
do the damn thing, dude.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on it. Shar, how was your week?
It's been pretty good. It's been a chill week over here. I'm like back from vacation and back to working and everything. I've been away from a couple episodes now, but well, I guess this one, but happy to be back.
Yeah,
No, and we have missed you.
we did miss you.
I
It was
know.
a little weird. It
Aww.
was a little weird without you, but we had a really good time, and actually, I just finished editing it, and, like, it came out, like, way better than I thought it did because me and Zoe were both so, like, dead tired that
Mhm.
night that we thought we were just, like, not even speaking, like, words or English or whatever, but it ended up sounding really good, so I'm excited for everybody to hear it. Thorn, you and I have basically been watching horror movies since we came out of the womb, which might speak a little bit about our home life, but tell everybody, what are some of your favorites right now?
I mean, some of my absolute favorites of recent years has definitely been some of the classic Italian and even some French horror from around the 70s and going into the 80s.
Right?
But
Ooh.
more recently, I had watched a really killer horror movie that was a suggestion for me, which was The Wailing,
Oh, yeah. I need to watch that
which
one.
I have to say really is, being a fan of really classic psychedelic horror, it really checked all the boxes, and I was so surprised for such a new movie.
Also, I feel a little bit like psychedelic horror is like pretty easy to fuck up. So I feel like when it's done well, it's like, oh, what a great, it wasn't a letdown, like what a great thing.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
But I hear, and Zozo was saying the same thing. I hear great, great stuff about it. So I'm definitely going to have to.
Unlike some other options, I've seen some more recent stuff that was just truly terrible. Like they
Oh,
were going for
yeah.
it and they didn't hit it.
For like the psychedelic thing?
Oh yeah, like Mandy number
Oh
1.
god. You know what? I have a bone to pick with Mandy, and I always like, oh my god. Oh my god. I feel like it's the thing that's so frustrating about it is no disrespect, okay? Cuz actually Nicolas Cage has grown a lot on me over the past like couple of weeks for whatever reason, but I feel like I really didn't enjoy Mandy for the most part, and I feel like people whose opinions that I normally agree with and people whose opinions I respect all really like that movie. And it's like the most mind-boggling thing.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I will say, like, in hindsight, I really actually did think that a lot of the visuals were really nice. I thought that the monster things were really, or the demon things were really cool, obviously very Cenobite-esque. However, that's about as far as it went for me. Like, I didn't really like much else about it.
There might be something to be gleaned from like the possibility of it being very digestible and like low entry level psychedelic horror that's valuable about it.
Right.
That kind of gets, someone who is very likely to watch a Nicolas Cage movie may not be very likely to watch a classic horror film. There's a chance that there's some crossover there. So I'd say there's
Yeah,
probably
you're
some
right.
value in that sense because it definitely was, a major screening movie. So there was definitely some element of that to it, which I think is definitely valuable.
Right. And we definitely needed some sort of redemption from the previous classic horror Nicolas Cage combination, which would have been Wicker Man.
Oh yeah.
And we
Oh
don't need
my
to talk about
gosh.
the
We're
Wicker
not gonna
Man
even
Oh
get
remake.
into
yeah.
that one.
No, not the bees. Oh my god. Oh god. So yeah, I mean, I would say that it's a bit of a redemption for sure. I will say there are some parts of that movie that I thought were like it's so funny we're expanding on the movie that you said you weren't crazy about, but
Hey, let's do
the
it.
like yeah, the part where they have like that ridiculous chainsaw fight.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed that one quite a bit.
Yeah,
I
me
like
too.
that part.
Well, because the guy pulls out like a 20-foot chainsaw. It's like just
Hmm.
off the wall. It's so ridiculous. Honestly, looking back, I liked it a little bit more than I thought I did, but
Yeah,
I
there was
wasn't crazy
enjoyable
about
moments,
it.
and there was definitely some visual stuff. I think my main problem with it is, and it also might, and it maybe I wonder if there's some similar opinions on your end, but I find with a lot of modern production or modern visuals, things tend to lack what I would call like a tertiary element. Everything's primary, secondary at best. So you've got a building, and it is a triangle and
Right.
it's one color and the background's a secondary color. There's no like little smaller finer details.
Are you talking about Midsummer right now?
Yeah. but but seriously, and I think that's kind of
No,
part of
you're
my
right.
issue with like newer film, whereas when you take for example like an older classic like Jean Rollin, which of course we're going to definitely talk about. I mean, his films are like excruciatingly detailed, like to where at
Right.
times it almost might even lose your attention. But I
Right.
really enjoy that. Like my absolute favorite film from his would be Shiver of the Vampires, and not shortly after the beginning of the movie, there's, I kid you not, it has to be, I'm not sure if y'all have seen it or not.
Mm-mm, not me. Not me.
There has to be about 2 to 3 minutes worth of camera panning up a wall and showing vines on a castle. Like
Right.
it's
Wow.
just really showing the details, and it if you're not in too much of a hurry, I feel like that really kind of brings something to the movie for sure. It kind of builds the atmosphere.
Right. Well, had you seen that movie that came out kind of recently, Skinamarink, or did you never get around to
No,
it?
I hadn't.
Well, so actually, the way you're describing, I think that might actually be a really good one for you because the whole thing about that movie is it's only what you described as tertiary elements, essentially. There is no main focus basically at any point in the movie. And to be totally honest with you, I think that has a lot to do with why I had trouble watching it, just because it was extremely slow burning. But I think that you would enjoy it. What basically the camera angles in that movie would be like is, for example, it would be a shot of a living room, but it would be shot from like you catch the corner of a TV, which is overexposed. You know, when you like film a TV, it's just bright. It's
Hmm.
basically that. You can't really see what's going on the TV, but you can hear like it's like a cartoon. You can maybe see like a kid's foot and you can hear
That's
him like
horrifying.
babbling in the background. So you kind of like know that he's like, you don't really hear much clear dialogue. You don't really have a clear shot of really any one particular subject. It's basically all those tertiary elements. So I think that that might be something that you really enjoy. And actually, I will admit, I know that Charlotte was, I was on the phone with her while I was watching it and I was like complaining the whole time. But it was actually a very creepy, honestly, a pretty unsettling movie. So I think that I definitely recommend that one for you.
Skinamarink. I do remember seeing some promotional materials about it.
Well, even the promotional materials, it was like they didn't really tell you what to expect. So it was kind of just like
Is it kind of creature feature esque?
Hmm.
you know what's crazy is like I wouldn't even begin to know how to explain the movie to you
I
really.
see. Well, that sounds cool then.
Basically, and this is not giving anything away, but basically what the movie is about is it's two children, very, very young children, like probably like 3 and 5 or so, are left home alone. The dad like goes to the store, classic. But and then the windows and doors just start disappearing one by one.
Oh well.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty disturbing. Yeah, actually, I mean the concept is really terrifying. And I think that you would be a good candidate for that one.
Let's pause for just a second. We can edit this out. I don't know why,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Goober's kind of barking a little bit. I'm gonna go check.
Okay, okay.
No way, Goober.
What?
He was having a dream.
Oh.
Aw.
Let's not edit this out, y'all.
Yeah, we're keeping that.
Yeah.
We're not editing this out.
Here we are talking about horror movies, and this dog's in here having one, dude.
Nightmare.
Yeah, you're just doing his. It was. I should have known. I had a feeling, but it's kind of early in the day for him. Normally, when he has his little dreams, he'll kind of be laying on his side, and he'll just be like,
Oh, I know. 'Cause I've seen him do it whenever.
like
Sometimes
that.
we watch him for a few days, and like whenever they're out of town, and like he'll just, it's like his little body will just like shake, like he's running from something or
Yeah,
whatever.
we're chasing something, dude.
It makes you wonder what a dog, like what happens in a dog nightmare, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Vacuum cleaners and
The
shit.
horrors of canines.
Yeah.
Well, an absolute other favorite of mine would very easily be Torso. Torso is
Right,
definitely one of
right.
my
I love that
favorite
one.
horror movies.
Great movie.
Oh, it's very slow building, again, from that kind of same time period. But, you only have to get about halfway through the movie to realize how many other movies have literally been so directly influenced by this one. Or
Right.
maybe in some kind of way like groupthink, Megamind, they've just
I
found
know.
themselves in the same place. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just such universal horror. But
Right.
all I will say is the key scene is the
Yeah.
key scene of all horror movies, in my opinion. That's like horrifying.
Yeah, it's really sad. Well, not sad, but like just very unnerving. You know what? Stuff like that kind of makes me think, is there something that happened historically around that time that made people have like that, all have that same fear?
Yeah, I
Because
do wonder.
it's usually certain, if you think about certain movies that come out that have similarities between them around a similar amount of time, it's because of some sort of thing that's happening in current events. Like, for example, you take like the COVID stuff, and then of course there's going to be all of a sudden a bunch of short films pop up about people being sick or
Oh, that's a good point.
some horrible disease going around, things like that. So it just makes you kind of think, something to
Well, I
consider.
do wonder, I haven't done my like just research on it, but I do wonder if
Well, maybe we should explain a little bit of what we're talking about, because I just realized that probably most people aren't just gonna like know exactly what we mean right off the bat. And what we're referring to is the kind of like burlap sack masked killer with like black gloves and a knife kind of thing, like
Ooh.
a Bowie knife.
Like the farmers
So
killers, I guess.
farmers
Well, not
killers?
farmer,
I'm
but
not
just
sure.
like. No, I was gonna say it just sounds like a kind of like country movie, I
Mhm.
guess.
Children of the Corn vibe going on.
Yeah, basically.
But no, in general, I guess like even the masked killer, like a
Right.
stalker, a
Stalker, exactly.
Jason, a Michael Myers, Zoe creeping in the room. You
You're
know,
good. Yeah.
the I think that there's something to be said about materials that were available during the
Right.
filming of these movies.
That's a good point.
It's really easy to start building with the blocks that you have available to you. So
Right.
I would say with Torso, that one's pretty tough because the mask is very, very creepy in that movie.
Yeah,
It,
it's super creepy.
it's really uncomfortable, and I think there was probably something to be considered that during the 70s there was also not only a heightened period of obviously horror, in my opinion,
Right.
but there was also, in a general opinion, kind of a heightened sense of design at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You had things just prior to that, like the Bauhaus in Germany, you had a lot of this sort of abstract and like absurdist kind of art occurring at that
Right.
time period. So I do wonder if some of these fundamental horror elements were, obviously some, which is a whole nother conversation, probably were stemming from folklore, things like this. But I would imagine a large bit of it really came from this kind of raw, abrasive understanding of the human element and
Right.
these kind of general ideas of things that we find horrific, because that's,
Right.
you find, you watch these classic movies and they're like drenched. Even it's a very controversial thing to say, but I'm not quite a huge fan of Hammer films. But even in Hammer
We talked about
films,
it the other day.
oh yeah, it's very thoroughly demonstrated this attention to the abstract, like with the lighting. Like there will be a scene where a person just literally has green lighting across their entire
Right.
face. There's nothing natural about that. It's completely supernatural. At the same time, those colors really communicate a certain feeling within us, and it might vary from person to person, but there's some general feelings of like evil, malignant, what have you.
Well, we know that usually, like, red is, like, associated with something bad or intense is about to happen or
Hmm.
some dramatic showdown. And then we know if it's blue, there's either A ghost around, or B, like, things are pretty
Yes.
Mhm.
calm, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, certain I would totally agree with you that certain colors are definitely, especially in horror movies, indicative of the feeling that you're supposed to be feeling in that moment. And I think that it's also a really clever way to kind of suggest what's going to happen without it being like totally obvious, like,
Hmm.
he's right behind me, isn't he? That
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that for me, that would be a light level critique again, on like some modern filmmaking. I do find that today, especially with productions like Mandy, which was put out by, I can't think of the studio right now, but they've done a lot of films with this very similar style. And though I could really appreciate it, we're kind of at this point left with the tag retro, something just being retro but not really capturing what the retro film was intending, and that's kind of part of my issue. It's kind of just mimicking,
Right.
rather than using the
I
same,
agree.
kind of techniques.
I agree. I'm very, very particular about kind of like not period pieces, but something that's supposed to occur like, in a previous era. Just for example, like I will say like if you're thinking of X or Pearl, which I mean everybody who's listened to this
Yeah.
podcast for even 10 minutes knows I love those movies. I think that those were really successful, and I think that Robert Eggers is also obviously really successful in kind of capturing
Hmm.
an older time. But I think that it is just so obvious when it's not successful, and it's just
Hmm.
such a bad move when it's not done well, because it's just so.
Yeah, it's inauthentic, right?
Exactly, right, that's the word I'm looking for. Are there anything else that you've been watching recently that you've been particularly swayed by?
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, to be honest, I kind of need to catch up on some more like current films. I'm always
Well,
so
those are the hardest.
enveloped in looking through the yeah, because it's so much to filter through. But that said, there's just as much to filter through prior, than current. There's even more, but at least you can kind of find a director that you can really kind of groove with, and
Right.
just go through the filmography, go through the whole list.
I think the thing that's toughest for me whenever you're like trying to navigate newer films is that everybody's got an opinion on them. Older films, it's kind of like harder. It's like more of a niche crowd that knows what happens, or, has their own suggestions to make about it. But with newer films, and I would say that there are a lot more people getting into horror lately as well. So everybody's got an opinion on it. You don't necessarily know who to listen to. And so then it's like, oh, well,
I've got an opinion on it.
right. I've heard that like, oh, like there are 20 movies that I could mention right now that the people in this podcast have recommended me, so it's kind of like, which one of those do I choose? And
The
obviously, yeah, I
Wailing.
was about to say The Wailing is at the top of the list for that, but yeah, it's definitely
And be
harder.
prepared. No, I'm serious. Be prepared not to sleep. Like
Yeah.
it's scary,
Did you
dude.
ever watch did you watch
Scary
The
stuff.
Medium, or did you not?
I had not.
Oh, so
Oh, we
that's
gotta
one that
watch
me,
it.
Char, and Kai watched recently. Yeah, that one is actually, I'm not gonna say I
It's
had
just
trouble
crazy.
actually, did you have trouble sleeping, Char?
I just remember being very uncomfortable and kind of like questioning my religion and everything after watching that movie.
Yeah.
But just saying.
I think I might have had trouble sleeping, but it was just like unnerving in a way that was very familiar because the movie is set in Thailand. And so like, we're kind of familiar with like the idea of like more village people type of superstitions and stuff like that. So it was something that hit a little bit closer to home. And
Oh,
also
you love
some of the
whaling, dude.
scenes, I know, dude. Well, that's why I mentioned The Medium, is because it seems
Yeah.
like it's got some similar vibes to it. Dude, you got to watch The Medium. It's good. I mean, it's something that, yeah, I mean, it's just so good. Yeah. Okay. But also it's like pretty critically acclaimed as well. And there we go with all the like another like new movie suggestion, but that one's pretty good. Something I wanted to ask you, I think about this a lot, and me and Zoe kind of talked about this a little bit last episode because we were talking about being children and consuming horror movies. What were some of the earliest horror movies you remember actually watching?
Okay, so some of the earliest. Well, there would be like some classics. I definitely remember Halloween
Right.
more than I remember Friday the 13th.
Oh, yeah. Well, those were ones that were always on repeat in our house for whatever reason.
Well, I think because they generally speaking would always be playing on some kind of standard cable channel, you know, like
Right.
CW or WB or whatever.
like
WB.
like any Halloween, there would be like the Halloween, especially on the
The
Sci-Fi
marathon.
channel. That was my
Yes.
start.
31 days
The
of
Sci-Fi channel was
That
where
was
it
a good
all
one.
began.
Right,
Yes.
right.
I remember a lot of creature features for sure.
Oh God,
Like,
Piranaconda, and fucking
oh yeah,
Sharknado and shit.
Anaconda, Tremors,
Oh God.
Mimic. You know,
Ugh,
I guess
yeah.
that's all like late '90s, early 2000s era stuff,
yeah.
and like varying levels of really poorly done CGI
Right. Oh
and
God, the CGI just
very
being
low budget
bombarded.
remnants of practical effects, which was kind
Right.
of a bummer of that time period.
Yeah, definitely. It was also AMC was the other channel that we like always had
Absolutely.
on. But AMC was really good for the like marathons of shit. So especially during Halloween, it'd be like, oh, like yeah, for example, like it would be a Halloween marathon, or it'd be like it's always Halloween and Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th marathon or Nightmare on Elm Street or something. I mean, they were really good about having a good selection of movies playing basically
That's it.
at
It
all
was always like
times.
weird ones though. It was always like Halloween 5.
Right.
It
Yeah,
was
that's
always-
true. Yeah, that's
Yes.
true. Yeah.
And can you tell me
Oh my
why
God.
Anaconda was on like all the time? Like
Dude.
Yeah,
it was
always
just
on.
that go-to movie that was on every channel.
It was a good. I feel like I remember it being good though. Was it? I hope it was, because I
We're gonna have to
remember it being
rewatch
good.
It was pretty sick, but I think part of the shift in horror, if you can call it, at that time period, is that I feel like a lot of horror movies franchises entirely kind of shifted more into like action movies, you know, by
Right.
then.
Right.
Like you take Alien versus Alien 2, you know, Aliens, it's like an action movie, you know.
Oh
The
my
second one
God.
couldn't hardly be any more different from the first, and that's kind of what I remember of Anaconda. It's been years, but
Right.
you know, I
J-Lo
do
and Ice
remember,
Cube.
you know, guns and like
Oh, for
stabbing
sure.
snakes and, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because I always think that about the Terminator and like
Yeah.
the movies following it. I am like so adamant to everybody, like the Terminator was a horror movie. The first
Oh,
one was
yeah.
a horror movie. Like the scene where he goes in the club and he's looking for her and he's just like looking straight at her and he's got the gun and shit. I'm like, that's fucking terror. I mean, yeah, it was just like, well, he appeared human, but obviously he wasn't. But he just looks like a regular guy. But that's a monster, dude. He was a
absolutely.
fucking
Yeah.
monster. That one is so scary.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely cosmic horror. I mean, absolutely.
The following movies, the sequels and stuff, were just action, basically. I mean, there's no, I mean, really no horror
Oh,
element
by the second
basically at
one,
all.
it's purely action. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Sci-fi action.
Right.
There was something, I wouldn't be able to quote it properly, but there was a line in the first movie that I think really installs it as a horror film, in that they're discussing how it just can't be killed, you know,
Right.
and it just continues to follow.
Yeah.
It pursues Sarah Connor, you know. So has everyone here gotten the chance to watch through the first season of Twin Peaks?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. let's talk about Twin Peaks.
Okay.
Because I will say
yeah.
that what made that one so amazing is the fact that it really was horror, and that was a regular television
It's like a soap
show.
opera.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Literally, well, it came on normal television. You didn't have to have any
That's
kind of
crazy.
special
Yeah.
package with your cable company. And from what I recall, it aired very late, like way late at night, like
I believe it.
maybe 11 even,
Oh, I believe
So,
it. It would have to.
oh yeah, the entire day is done. And then the extremely like spacey, dissonant music of Angelo Baldamente
God.
comes on, which is very Silent Hill esque in my
Right.
opinion.
Yes.
Yeah,
That
that's
style
true.
Yes.
of music, it's almost shoegazy,
It's so
Mhm.
into
depressing.
Definitely.
this dream sequence,
Mhm.
of Twin Peaks. I think especially the pilot episode with the is it Sarah Palmer, the mother?
The mom?
Sarah
Sarah
Palmer, I
Palmer.
believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah.
And she, at the very end of the episode, she starts visualizing, because she's completely in a trance at this point, at the loss and the grieving of losing her daughter.
Mhm.
And she's visualizing like a person walking through the woods at night, only to then see this hand, like gloved hand, start digging around in the dirt and retrieving this necklace that was just placed early in the
Yes.
episode. It was like, who the fuck is that?
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I
What the
was
fuck is that? And
hooked.
then she starts
Yeah.
screaming. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my God,
That's basically
terrifying.
Yeah.
the entire show is
Yeah.
like, who the fuck is that and what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
But
Dude,
it's a great
yes.
show.
Yes. That was me when the Red Rim episode. That honestly took me out.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know what I was watching anymore at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Really, the whole world of Twin Peaks is amazing to me. Like Fire, Walk with
Oh
Me,
yeah.
and all the strange, like stilted language, and yeah, all the scenery. Crow described it this way: it's like a bad acid trip, and I completely
Oh,
agree.
yes.
It's like you're
Absolutely.
coming down, and everything's horrible.
What I love about Twin Peaks is like it kind of sparked this just love for like being in a smaller city, just like surrounded by like trees, like forested and shit. Like I think it's because of that show. That's why I want so bad to like end up like in the wood, living in the woods off the grid in like Norway or some shit at some point. Like just I don't know, in the middle of nowhere where kind of like weird kind of
Oh
magical
yeah,
shit
just
happens.
vibing.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
just
dude.
vibing for sure.
There was actually something, I felt there was a parallel in the writing of Twin Peaks and the Amityville Horror, actually.
Hmm. Do share.
So, the Amityville Horror is one of the very few books that I've managed to read. I'm just really bad at committing to reading a book.
It's hard, yeah, to
There's a
keep
lot of
your
books I've
attention.
made it halfway through, and so that one I made it through, but it's only like sub 500 pages, so it's a really easy thing to accomplish.
I've never read the book actually. I'd like to though. I didn't
Oh, it's
realize.
good. The movies suck in comparison, not gonna lie. And I know
Wow.
that this is not a book show per se.
Oh, it's all things horror, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, check this out. There's this and I don't think they really touch on it much in the movies, and it may be a little spoiler, but anyways, the classic trope of, it's all going on Native American burial grounds, and
Right,
that's the
right.
entire explanation for everything that's going on here. Well, actually, in the book, they kind of dive in a little bit further into this suggestion that prior, obviously, these horrific crimes occurred. This boy killing his whole family and stuff, and he was potentially into occultism, Satanism, this sort of thing. And then prior to that, at some point in time, it was a Native American burial ground for the deranged. So the idea was that like the extremely mentally ill were buried there, and
Right.
and that created this culmination of dark energy there. But going even prior to that, there becomes this suggestion. Then, as they dig even deeper, it's like they keep on pulling out more layers to what's going on and what's fucked up with this
Right.
house. And they end up uncovering that perhaps the house itself sits at a fold of dimensions, that at this spot, just on the planet in the universe, there exists this overlapping of existences, and therefore everything that they're experiencing is horror for them. And this is where I guess it gets slightly Lovecraftian even,
Right.
but it's horrific for them, but for the entities actually passing into the house, it's purely just the manifestation of their energy.
Yeah.
And so therefore this is how they actually are presented in this home. And so therefore I felt that there was a lot of crossover with that with Twin Peaks, because at some point they start suggesting that, especially with Bob, which is a
Right,
terrible
right.
name for a villain.
Crazy.
But I don't know why he did
Yeah.
that, dude. That's
Yeah.
wild.
This is so-
Yeah.
Bob and Mike.
Right.
Well, Bob is, it suggests he's a trans-dimensional being,
Right,
and
right.
and what's going on with the Black Lodge being this place of great evil that exists at this point in which the worlds cross,
Right.
and I've just felt
Yeah.
that there was definitely some very classic, and I mean way classic, horror elements going on there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I could absolutely see that. And now that you're mentioning it like that, like honestly, a lot of different that's like happens in a lot of different movies and stuff, right? Like there's this area where it's like, oh, things are a little bit more sensitive, or the fabric between realities is a little bit close,
This
smaller.
space is like a conduit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel like this show had to have blown people's minds when it came out back in like the early.
Oh, can you
Absolutely. It blew my
imagine?
mind.
I cannot even imagine like people, or when would this have come out, in the like early 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine some I don't know, like I guess I think about like our parents and stuff, just like
Being on TV. Our parents would definitely
Oh,
watch
yeah.
this.
mom being pregnant with me and
Smoking
shit,
the
watching
worst weed known to man,
brick,
like
yeah, a brick of just
yeah,
soot.
absolute
Yeah.
reg, dude.
Oh,
And here I am
God.
hitting the dab pen watching Twin Peaks, losing my mind. Like, I'm in that bitch,
Oh my gosh. It just makes you wonder. It's kind of like crazy to think about, like, do people like consume it? Obviously, we have a different view of the world because, we're like generations or
Mhm.
like a generation later. But do you think they really like watched it and saw what we saw? Like, do you think we took the same things away from? I mean, not that any one person would take the same thing away as somebody else, but
Yeah, that would be my argument. I don't know that any one person could, like it's got
right.
so much content, going
So
on. Man, y'all
much.
should do a whole episode on Twin Peaks.
Right.
That's
Oh
not
my
a bad idea.
God. Or like
Yeah.
David Lynch in general. I feel like
Yeah.
Oh, that,
Right.
yeah,
He's
I
such
would
a
love to
wave.
do that.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen Riverdale. It's
I
that modern
didn't.
TV show
I
that
have
came out.
actually.
But a lot, and I was telling this to Thorn whenever we were watching the seasons of Twin Peaks, a lot of the actresses and actors in there are in this show.
From Twin
I
Peaks?
believe it.
And then the way that the hypnosis is, it's very similar to Twin Peaks. So if
Oh.
you guys get the opportunity to watch that show, I would do it.
I heard it was pretty good. It just came
Mhm.
out at a time that there were like a million other shows that came out too.
Right.
So it was so hard for me to like.
Hemlock Grove.
Right. I did
Mhm.
actually watch Hemlock Grove, and I did
Oh,
actually
no.
kind of like that movie or that show.
What is
sorry.
Me
it? Bates-
too. I love
Bates
that
Motel.
show.
Bates Motel is one I will not touch.
I love Bates Motel.
I wanted to see Bates Motel.
I
Actually.
won't do it. I just refuse.
Really? You don't think it's good?
No, I mean, I don't know. I'm just,
Dang.
look, I'm very, very, look, you know how I feel about Psycho. So I don't know if I could do it. I mean, maybe I'll just have to try like an episode.
I mean, there's no doubt that most of these shows, and it's unfortunate, there's just so much to get through.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My opinion of it is that there's no way that they're all bad. They've got to all
No,
be
for
pretty
sure
good,
not. Well, one that I want to watch and I hear good stuff about is that the series they did about From Dusk Till Dawn, and that's one of my favorite vampire movies. So I heard I don't know. It would be strange for a Satanico Pandemonium to not be Salma Hayek, but I heard that it's really good. So I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some that I've seen that I can't recall them like right off the top of my head, but that I did enjoy.
I just wish Riverdale had been more like Archie's Weird Mystery, the live action or something. But I
Right.
definitely still support it. What was the first horror movie that you guys ever saw, by the way? Like you guys saw together?
So I don't know. I mean, we kind of just watched everything together because we had like that living room TV that we would like.
Oh,
I still
nice.
see, it's crazy because I still see exactly what our house looked like when we were kids. But
Mhm.
I remember one of the
Dude.
first ones that I watched that I wasn't supposed to be watching was actually Seed of Chucky for whatever reason. For whatever reason. But I remember sneaking up because here's the thing, dude. This is so funny, like thinking about now. I don't don't even know if people do this anymore, but at the time, like there was like a code. You remember like the child safety code that
Yeah,
like if you
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
watch a
yeah.
rated R movie, parents had to like
Dude,
put
I
the
totally
code in.
forgot about that.
Yes,
Crazy.
but mom and dad only did it for the living room TV. So every time they were gone, I would like go in their room and watch it on their TV
What a
because
Nice.
they
dick
didn't.
move. Like, why would
Yeah,
y'all put that on the
Right.
TV, you know?
right. Well, because they didn't put it on their own, obviously, because that'd just be a pain in the ass. So I would
Yeah.
just go
No
watch it in their
kidding, you
room.
know? I would agree.
But also, I remember we would go in, they had like a computer in their room, and we would go watch movies in their room on their computer too. And they didn't even know what we
Nice.
were watching. So we would just close the doors, and sometimes they would like come in and like we'd have to turn it off. But I remember one movie, this is by no means one of the earliest ones we watched together. It's just one that I remember. We were watching fucking oh my god, what's that one? It's like Johnny got his gun or some shit. And I just remember thinking, why are you showing this shit
Yeah,
to
I was
me?
showing you
That movie
that.
is
This
fucked up, I
sad
think.
Yeah, the
ass
movie's
fucking
pretty
movie.
wild.
Oh
It's
my
not really,
god.
yeah, it's
It's
not
not
a
a horror.
horror
Yeah, it's
No,
movie.
just
but
depressing.
just thinking of it. Yeah, definitely
Yeah,
not a
it's like a
horror.
psychological drama, I guess, you know?
Right. More like a thriller, I'd say,
I
probably.
would say one of my earliest ones. What was that one that I had shown you just recently, Zoe? Just recently being anywhere within the past 6 months. It was
Yeah, it's gonna take a minute.
The Darkness. Was that what it was called?
That sounds familiar.
Yes, The Dark
Which one
with
was that
Anna
one?
Paquin.
Yes.
Yes.
It's called The Darkness.
It
Okay.
was so good.
So you might not remember it by name, but that was one of the earliest horror films I remember us like binge watching next to The Grudge. We watched The Grudge a lot.
Oh my god.
But
Okay. Yes. Okay,
But-
we're going to get into that later.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Darkness was actually we had like a DVD and we would watch it in the car a lot. Like
You
like
keep
anytime
telling
we
me
were
we saw
tagging
this
along
movie, but
places. Oh
I
yeah,
don't
and
remember it.
the general premise is that it's actually kind of worth watching. It's so
Oh, I love Anna Paquin.
C-list that you would never find it on your own. So maybe one day it will be cult, maybe. But
Yeah.
there's some truly very scary scenes going on. I can't remember all the actresses and actors, but the father in the movie is played by one of the dudes from Game of Thrones. So there's some recognizable faces. Yeah, it starts off as like a family having family problems, and then next thing you know, there's a satanic
Classic.
cult. The next thing
Okay.
you know, that there's like innocent youth have to be sacrificed to this entity that then is opening up this like hell gate in the house, and it's
I'm gonna rewatch
crazy.
this.
It's pretty
Yeah.
sick, actually.
That sounds like something that I would watch like tomorrow.
Oh,
so.
it's mega, and let me tell you, more parallels to like Silent Hill vibes with the world
Mhm.
changing kind of thing going on. It was very good.
Wow.
But that was an early one.
Well, also like obviously like Gremlins was like one of our first ones too for some
Gremlins, hell
reason.
yeah.
We're like really into Gremlins. Anything that we had, it was basically what we had VHSs and DVDs of.
Mm-hmm.
We had so many fucking DVDs in the house. Oh, you know what was one of our earliest ones? And me and Zoe were actually talking about this the other day. Stir of Echoes.
Oh yeah.
That movie is so fucked.
Mhm.
It is so.
We had to turn it off on the part where that chick's fucking, or he was like having the visions and like his nail popped up.
Yeah.
I still remember we were like, turn it off, turn it the fuck
Shit was
off.
fucked.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
See the light of
Yeah.
day
Oh my god.
shine
That
down
Pose
on
song.
me.
And mom, that was mom's like favorite song for years. And so she would play it all the time. And I would just be like so upset. But it was like, I can't fucking, it's like her favorite song, dude. Yeah, while you guys were here the other day for the 4th of July too, we were also watching this show that I was telling Charlotte about, which was really, really good. It was, and I keep having trouble saying it right, but it was like 101 best scary movie moments.
Mhm.
And so like every episode, it's on Shudder. I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. It's really, really good. Every episode they go through like, so they'll go through like 101 to like 90 for like the first episode. Then the next episode they go through like another chunk or so. And then the last episode is like the top 10. Yeah, it just got me to thinking like what some of my personal favorite scary movie moments were.
Are you paid by Shudder?
I was not, Jesus Christ, but I'd love to be. Hey, Shudder, if you want to sponsor me, like any fucking time, dude.
Please.
Anytime, dude. I always tell people about how much I love it. But yeah, I was thinking about when we were kids, one of your scariest Or one of the moments in a scary movie that freaked you out the worst was actually in the Texas Chainsaw remake. It was like when they're going through the what is
Yeah.
it like it was
In the
like a
meat
meat
locker.
freezer.
Oh,
Yeah, the
yeah.
meat
Oh
locker,
god.
and he was just like he's like cutting the fucking like pigs and shit trying to get to
No,
her.
Gosh.
Jessica Biel is hiding amongst the
Oh,
carcasses,
Mhm.
and
yes.
he just starts shaking the chains. Oh
I
my
Oh
remember
god!
that.
god.
Like,
Oof.
Evil.
Yeah. And I remember you were so freaked out. Holy shit. Yeah, I was too. And I like when we were younger, I was like, I'm not gonna watch it. Like I saw the one scene, you showed it to me, and I was like, fuck this movie.
mhm.
I refuse to watch it. And then now it's like one of our favorites.
No, that one was particularly scary, and I
Yeah.
have to say that we were. That would make all of us really. We were all four of us here. We were all growing up in an era of pretty peak like gore
Mhm.
horror.
Yes,
You know, it was
definitely.
very
Right.
Gory.
hostile, like the movie Hostel, or like the
Yes.
movie Saw, like
Yes,
very
definitely.
aggressive killers. You know, like
Oh god, yeah,
yeah, it was
absolutely.
very death metal kind of energy going
Mhm.
on.
Well, to be a child, oh, very like Cannibal Corpse energy.
Yeah,
But to
very
be a
Cannibal
child
Corpse
at
kind of
that
shit going on.
time was like pretty fucked, you know?
hmm
Like being left to our own devices and having all of these movies available. It was honestly like, yeah, I
Wax
would say
House,
like a
House of
time.
House
Wax.
of Wax.
Oh god, yeah, that one.
Yeah, the part where she's sticking her finger up through the
Yeah, we
thing.
keep
Oh.
talking about that. It was like probably like the most dramatic time for, and I know that everybody's gonna be like, oh well, when I was a kid and The Exorcist came on TV, yes, that shit's scary. But this was like the an extremely dramatic time for body horror, and it
hmm
was just all of a sudden very accessible as well.
hmm
So it was like you find a fucking DVD in the $5 bin at Walmart, anybody could buy it, really. I mean, they
Yeah.
had
Right.
certain rules were in place, but nobody really enforced them. Like we could go in there and just buy whatever we wanted, and if we couldn't, just slip it under our shirt and take it home. And then it was like also at a time where internet started like becoming really really widely accessible as well. So anything that we wanted to watch, we could just find it on there. It was like not only all of a sudden really dramatically gory, but all of a sudden really easy to find.
Well, maybe I'm too far unplugged, but in the opinion of all of y'all, would y'all say that there seems to be less horror movies going to the big screen every weekend now than there was in say 2008?
Absolutely,
Yeah, for
It
yes.
seemed
sure.
like every
Yeah.
single
I
weekend
would
you
say
might have even
100%.
had two options every
Yeah.
weekend, for a horror
Mhm.
movie. Now we got Oppenheimer and Barbie,
Right. Which we're totally down for the
which
Barbenheimer.
both look lit.
Yeah.
I
Both
think
look
that
lit.
kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, saying that I personally haven't seen a lot of modern horror films, um,
Right.
which I'm really trying to catch up on, but I think I'm just scared of the thought of it just being not very well,
Right,
So
just
that's
Like
why
waste
disappointing.
of time or
I'm
something.
kind of scared to like just venture into that time.
Yeah, I feel you. I will also say it's not as easy as just going to the movies and buying a ticket. And at the time, it's kind of weird to think about. The tickets were like, what, $5 or $6? And
hmm
now
Hmm.
it's not so much as just going
Christ.
to the movies, buying a ticket, and sitting and enjoying it. It's having the subscription service that the movie is on, or it's buying it for fucking, believe it or
hmm
not, like $20 on Amazon Prime or something like that. It's like, it's not as easy, really. It really isn't quite as easy. And there are some movies, and I talk about this all the time, some movies that you can't find anywhere. And so your best bet is
hmm
to like buy actually a physical copy of it and then hope you have the means to actually be able to consume that copy. Like maybe you don't have a VHS or you don't have like even a fucking disk drive in your computer anymore. Some other movie scenes that I was thinking about when we were kids that were like really disturbing is, and I don't know if this bothered you as much. It seemed like it was more me, but like you mentioned earlier, The Grudge, that movie fucked me up as a
Yeah,
kid.
hands down, that's one of the most horrific
Hmm.
movies ever made.
Oh my god,
I'd
and
stand
I
by it.
mean, go back and watch it again, and it's not nearly as, like, scary or haunting necessarily, but it's a great movie. When we were kids, I think the thing that I like so much about that movie is that I'm not gonna necessarily say that this is that kind of, like, tertiary level of detail, but there were many parts in the movie where it wasn't obvious that she was there, but she was just, like, lurking.
hmm Chilling. Like you might have found it the third or fourth time you watched through that thing.
Hmm.
Exactly.
There's might be something to be gleaned from that. In fact, at a time, and don't mean to sound like a boomer here, but we are talking about our childhood, which
Right.
Yeah.
does put us, more than 10 years ago.
20 years ago, dude.
Mhm. So I will say that at that point in time, the accessibility to horror was limited to physical media. You know,
Right.
there was no streaming, really any serious amount of streaming available at the
Right,
time.
right.
So it was a lot more common in 2000 aughts, 2000 to 2010. There was much more of a higher probability, just like people beforehand in the 70s, 80s, 90s, that you would be watching the same horror movie more than once.
Yeah.
Yes. That is such a good point.
There'd be a good chance you'd be, that a lot of people, particularly in our age group and maybe above, that have probably seen The Grudge like 20 fucking times,
Right.
So
That's crazy. I
there
never
were
thought
more
about that.
things to kind of find and pick up, each time you watched it.
Or how about that movie? Let's talk about, and I just rewatched it, Cloverfield too.
Oh yeah,
That
that
was
shit
another one of
Yeah.
those
sucked.
movies. Oh no, you know what? Go back and watch it again, dude. I guarantee you, it's so much better than I remembered.
I don't know. That was one of the biggest hype train. There has to be like a
What? I
study done on
love
that
that
movie.
movie.
There has to be a
Oh,
study done
it
on
was. It was
most
extremely
disappointing hype
hyped.
trains in human history.
Oh, you're gonna. I mean, it's not like. Look, I'm not gonna say it's like influential even, but it's a solid, entertaining movie.
I
And
will
actually,
say, admittedly, they did have what, two sequels?
oh, did they? I didn't watch the sequels.
Well, I've actually heard that the sequels were pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
that would
like,
make sense because the first one was pretty cool too.
well, I guess it depends on who you ask. I mean, I've got a lot of divisive opinions, I will tell you. Like, same
No, for
thing
sure, for
for
sure.
like, I don't know. I have to say, I was gonna say that I thought The Village sucked,
I have mixed emotions.
but there was actually some pretty killer scenes in The Village as well.
I have mixed emotions about it because The Village is one of those movies for me where I wish they just let it be what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I felt like near the end it just got a little, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody
yeah,
because
yeah,
it
yeah.
really is a plot twist, but it got a little bit too ambitious in my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's like a trope for a lot of horror movies where at the very end it's like a dream sequence, or at the very
Got
end
some
it's,
bigger explanation.
in my opinion, again, and I guess this is full circle wrapping back to 70s horror, there doesn't need to be an explanation for me. I get the horror and I like the
Right.
horror. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be, okay, this is because of this, or
Yeah,
at the
for
very
sure.
end it turns out,
I mean, I don't mind there being some sort of backstory if it makes sense. I don't mind it if it makes sense and it really is like this profound like truth that's uncovered, but like a lot of the time it's not, and I would just
Mhm.
rather them just let it be what it is kind of thing.
Yeah, which Friday the 13th is it that they're at the like halfway house?
Oh,
Yeah, the
yes, the
one
one.
where
Yes.
Corey Feldman is
We
losing
were
it.
talking about this one on the last episode.
Yeah, I don't remember what exactly one it was. I think it was like the fifth one or something. I'm not sure.
It's pretty far, and I think it starts with the kid witnessing the other kids digging up Jason, and then Jason
Right.
kills all of them because he gets struck by lightning or something
No,
and
so the sixth
reanimated.
one, isn't it the sixth one where Tom? That's what the guy Tom or whatever. I don't know if that's his real name or his movie name, but he like, yeah, something like connects to like his grave and like shocks him with the lightning, and then he comes
Yeah,
Right,
back.
exactly.
that's the one.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
that one was like, the ending was highly unnecessary for that one too, I felt. It was just,
I
same
just
kind
love
of
those
stuff.
movies. Yeah, they're ridiculous. They do get like way more ridiculous as each movie goes on.
Have y'all talked about Hellraiser yet?
We mentioned it a little bit. We in our Final
Yeah.
Girl episode we mentioned Kirsty, but we didn't really get into it because we were planning on doing that for an episode. But
Yeah, that would be a
Mhm.
great episode, because that would be one for me personally that really changed my life.
yeah,
Watching it, the first one, and it's really even hard to explain why now in hindsight. I've
right,
rewatched it. I mean, I've watched literally every single one up to the past two sequels that they've made, or reboots that they've done. And I've watched every single one of those, I kid you not, 8 to 10 times each. And then the first and second one I've definitely watched probably well on towards 30 times. Like
right,
almost to
right.
like a
Unhealthy amounts.
just time wasting tick almost, or something.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to place exactly what it is. That's another one. The book is really great. It's only like 200 pages. It's very short, but really expounds a lot more on detail. You know, I guess that's the advantage to writing as opposed to film, because there's a
Right.
budget to film. But man, flawless. And the sequel novel, The Scarlet Gospels, is, I would say, close to its equal, if not slightly better at times. And it would be amazing to really see a film adaptation of that book,
Yeah.
which they haven't
Hmm.
done.
Wow.
Yeah, Clive Barker's mind and brain is absolutely fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Are you familiar with Wayne Barlow?
It kind of sounds familiar. I think maybe somebody suggested him to me before.
Hmm. He's an artist, a visual artist that's
Then
done.
no, it's not who I'm thinking of.
He's largely known for having a very um, similar art style and visual to kind of like the whole Cenobite world. You know, it's very much like hellscapes with this
Hmm.
like heavy supernatural kind of element. It's
Right.
really beautiful stuff if you ever get the chance to check it out. And I just kind of wanted to comment on it that a kind of slightly lesser known fact is, and again, this ties into childhood, is that sometime during the 80s, I want to say he had actually done a entire volume of science fiction work.
Hmm.
One particular instance finding its way to the Discovery Channel,
Wait,
which
what?
I'd actually discovered as a kid. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and it was, and it's a bummer because I can't think of exactly what it's called. It might be called like Planet Five or Planet something. And anyways, it's about like this imaginary planet where life exists, and scientists have supposedly sent like a rover over to like kind of observe everything. And it's pretty cool. He did a bunch of like drawings, sketches, all kinds of paintings and stuff. And at some point in time in the early 2000s, some filmmakers took that, and again, as we had mentioned before, being like the peak of bad CGI, they actually CGI animated all of the sketches, all of the drawings, and made an entire animated movie that aired on the Discovery Channel. And
I
it
can
was
only imagine.
pretty rad. It was
Oh,
like,
ended up being good
oh, it
CGI?
was super cool. I mean, as a kid, I thought it was badass. You
Right.
know, like it really very much fills that like that classic meme of like the shit that they show on the Discovery Channel at 3 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's because it was pretty far out, but it's funny. It's like here we are now. I didn't find out until last year that this artist that I followed for a long time for creating this really beautiful art, this very scary, hellish kind of ghoulish stuff, as it turns out in the past, was also the artist that did this.
The
The
show that
original
you
sketches for this science fiction show on
Wow.
Discovery Channel. So
Huh, that's interesting, yeah. What was the name of the show? Did you say you couldn't remember it, or
I couldn't remember it, but I could probably find it pretty quick. I'd have to send it to you.
Oh,
I'm
wait.
sure
Oh my
if
gosh.
I'm sure it's the only Wayne Barlow science fiction film.
Right. Yeah, I definitely have to look because I'm looking at these pictures and no, I've never seen this before. This is pretty like crazy
Oh, the
shit.
art. Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah, like the
far
creatures and
out.
stuff.
Yeah, and it's an entire universe. I think maybe he did some writing as well, but
Mm.
there's very much this like defined and complete kind of universe that he's pulling from. The creativity there is really far out.
Wow.
There's also something to be said with classic. I don't know if y'all ever plan to get around to like Dungeons and Dragons,
Right, yeah.
the classic like books that were put out on that, as well as the classic like the Magic the Gathering artwork.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff is so intense, and the artists that were working on that stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if that there was some amount of creature feature, pulling from some of these visuals,
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
thinking of teens in the 80s.
I had this book that I had checked out. I didn't buy it because for whatever reason, Dungeons and Dragons books are like like very expensive.
Yeah.
But I had checked it out from the library and I was like just thumbing through it, and it was basically the like visual kind of the visual art behind Dungeons and Dragons. So it was like
Hmm.
original
Oh,
character
that's cool.
designs, original like monster creature designs and stuff like that. And it was amazing to see like what was like the official like original designs of the characters, and then how they like slowly kind of changed over time. And so now obviously like it's a much more not dumbed down, but a lot more kind of tame version of what it was, but from before it's some very pretty far out looking shit, and super cool. Actually, I wanted to get some of that stuff tattooed on me, but like the
Hell
one, I
yeah.
can't remember her name, but it's like the lady with the body of the spider, and she's like a lady spider basically, which
Lady
obviously
Spider.
they they took that from or Castlevania definitely took that from the Dungeons and Dragons
Oh,
universe.
absolutely. What was everyone's last scariest dream?
Oh, good question.
I don't know. I feel like all my dreams are weird, especially lately. They always are like relatively normal, and then there's always like a slightly murderous element to them. Like I just don't know why. There's always like a B plot where someone's getting killed and trying not to get killed, and like
Oh,
just
shit.
weird things happening. So I don't know. Mine have been kind of scary lately because I've been watching this show from. It's like by these people who did Lost, and these people get stuck in this town where monsters come out at nighttime, and so my dreams have been
Ooh.
replicants of those monsters pretty much. So that's
Hmm.
kind of interesting. But I haven't had a
It's
good
far
like
out.
cold sweat dream in a while, honestly.
Ooh,
Mm.
love a good cold sweat dream.
You just wake up and you're like, all right, I'm not going to sleep again for the next 3 days.
Right? Yeah.
I don't think I've had like any like terrifying nightmarish dreams. Well, actually, no. I've been having like really realistic enlightening dreams, but besides that, sometimes I've been really lucid dreaming,
Oh wow.
and it's kind of been like far out. Like I don't really know
Yeah.
how to
All that damn marijuana, dude.
describe
Marijuana
it.
Oh
smoker.
my god.
What?
We're gonna
Marijuana
get
smoker.
I am
demonetized.
not. I am
Reefer
not.
smokers.
In Minecraft.
Bruh. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Well.
But that's pretty much it.
I don't really get that many nightmares, but I don't know why. If I do have a nightmare, it's almost like 90% of the time involving chainsaws. So it's usually somebody with a chainsaw, usually Leatherface, but not always. Usually someone with a chainsaw is chasing me, and it's usually in like this weird old house, and I usually have to find a way out. And it's a different way out like every time, but it's usually the same house. So sometimes I'll try the crawl space, or sometimes I'll try the window. And the weird thing about that is like the success rate isn't the same every time. So sometimes I get out the window, sometimes I get like chainsawed in half while I'm trying to. So it's like one of those things. It's kind of just like a game, I guess.
Well, I can't remember one, like maybe from this week, but I do have a lot of reoccurring nightmares.
Word.
One particularly is like a similar trope, and it's so familiar that by the time the the plot starts to unravel, I realize what's going on, and it kind of
Right.
starts defeating it at a point. But I'll have these dreams that it's pretty wild. I'll find myself at a very normal place, extremely normal place, like
Walmart.
Walmart, or like not Walmart, thank God. That'd be a nightmare from the
Yeah.
jump. No, but like a school, a theater, a home, a whatever. And usually it starts off as pretty standard. So let's say there'll be a house, and it will be a house that I'm moving into. It's like okay, I've got a new home, let's check it out, like I haven't already, and I'll
Right.
start looking, and I'll go through the bedrooms, go through the living room, and next thing I'll notice, I'm like, oh, that's cool, I don't remember this door being there, right?
Oh shit.
So I'll walk in the door, and the door will have usually a staircase, and the staircase goes up and down, which is pretty wild because usually upon first examination of the house, it looks like a standard like 1-story house or something like that.
Right.
So I'll start going up the stairs, and I'm like keeping track of where I'm going. But next thing I know, I get up a flight of stairs or so, and there's a door, but there's more stairs, and I'm like, well, we'll get to this door in a second. I'm gonna keep on going up the stairs just to figure out how far this goes, and I'll keep on going. And
Right.
next thing you know, the stairs are going on forever. I've lost count. I need to just go
Oh
through a door. I
no.
don't remember which floor I'm on. So then
Oh,
I
hate
start
that.
going through doors almost like
No.
feverishly, and then
Yeah.
the house is no longer cool. Like it's way uncool now. Like
Yeah, fuck
it's
yeah.
dilapidated. It's dust everywhere. It looks like no one's been in this room in
The
years or
back rooms, dude.
centuries. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and then next thing you know, there's just no electricity. So now I'm walking around in the dark, in a room that I've never been to before. There's like just this
Yeah.
overwhelming uncertainty. And it's usually coupled with, weird poltergeist stuff. Things start
Oh,
moving on the
gotta be.
walls, and
Yeah.
it's the presence is made clear, and it doesn't usually end in anything like gory or horrific, but it definitely wakes me up when it
It's
happens.
just unsettling
Oh,
for sure.
absolutely.
All right, guys, this was such a fun episode. I wish we had more time. I feel like we could just talk for hours, but thank you so much, Thorn, for hanging out with us. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I feel like you always have so much as far as like pertaining to this topic. That's just such valuable insight, and I really appreciated being able to have you on here to share that with everybody. And I will definitely say, if you ever have a chance to talk to Thorn about horror movies, don't squander the opportunity because you'll learn a lot from it.
I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely, dude. In our next episode, we are going to be talking about found footage films. So that's anything from Blair Witch Project to VHS and Quarantine, all of the above. So you definitely don't want to miss that. Come and hang out with us next time. Until then, that's all we have for this week. So thank you guys so much. Bye.
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 Uh-uh.
We can't say it at the same time.
All right, you go first.
Bye.
Bye.
Is there a story, film, or topic you want us to discuss in an upcoming episode? Email your suggestions to terrortakeoverpod@gmail.com. Intro music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio.